you really have to work hard for a set of skills that matter to you. Now, the skills have to matter. That's a key part of the equation. Once the skills matter to you and they allow you to serve not only yourself but other people, and then you actually go and serve those people, it becomes this really potent cocktail of neurochemistry. But I want to make sure that everybody understands the game that you're playing is a game of neurochemistry, right? In the last year, at least 2 billionaires committed suicide. So I mean, like, it's fucking heartbreaking when anybody commits suicide. But when billionaires start committing suicide, like if the answer is not just self-evident beyond all imagining that money is not going to solve the problems that exist between your ears, like there's nothing more anyone can tell you. A fool never learns. A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. On this one, I'm fucking begging you, be wise. I'm not telling you not to chase money. I'm just saying it's not going to feed you emotionally the way you think it is. So you've got to completely divorce yourself from this notion of outcome and become completely obsessed with the idea of sincere pursuit. Now, why sincere pursuit? The reason to tie your sense of self, your self-esteem, your ego, your identity, all of that, the reason to tie that to sincere pursuit is it's the only part you can control. I cannot promise you that you'll ever be successful. You cannot promise you that you will be successful. But you can promise and know, if you actually did it, to show up every day and really pursue it. You control your mindset. You control how you feel about yourself. Nobody can actually get you to feel some kind of way about yourself. You allow that shit in, right? That's like the cheesiest self-help shit you're ever gonna hear. But it got cheesy because it's so true, so people repeated it a lot. And if you lose sight of that, if you lose sight of what you allow yourself to think is going to control you at a neurochemical level, and at the neurochemical level, that's going to influence then again how you feel and how you think. And then you get into this death spiral where you're thinking negative shit. You believe in the negative shit, which makes you feel badly about yourself. And then you get stuck in that and you can't get out. And you see a lot of that on the hopes and fears. People afraid they're never going to be able to break free. People in this fucking room that took the time to write it down that they were never going to get out of that negative loop. And that negative loop is really real, but here's the thing. The negative loop is based in biology. And once you begin to understand what the biology is exactly, then you can begin to take control of your life. And step one in the biological train is to break the tie that you have between outcome and worth. Once you begin to break that down, then you can step to shit naked and raw and say, all right, this is just practice. And once you're in that mode of practicing, you're in skill acquisition mode. And the name of the game is skill acquisition. Like it really is sort of that dull and boring. It's just about getting so good at something that you can't be denied. And that's one of those things, like I'm going to say that phrase so much that I worry that's going to become trite. But that is one of the most awe-inspiring notions on the planet. The thought that you could become so good at something that you leave people in awe. And when you can leave people in awe, you can do just about anything you want with your life. The easiest way to talk about awe is to think of sports figures, right? You've got sports figures, you see somebody like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, you see what they do, and you think they're given a human body just like I was, but look at what they're able to do with theirs. It's absolutely extraordinary. And whenever you talk to the best of the best, these motherfuckers they always put in the work. And that is the obsession that anybody that wants to be great and achieve something has to have. It's got to ultimately boil down to the skill set. Now, here's the problem. The reality, and this is where I think most people get derailed. If you're able to detach yourself from the outcome, you're able to start thinking in this new way. It's about sincere pursuit. That idea of sincere pursuit puts you in the path of skill acquisition. The next thing that kills dreams real fast is the reality of what you're trying to build, to understand the reality. Who knows? What is the second law of thermodynamics? Entropy. Now, entropy is a fancy word for chaos. What it's saying is this is a fucking law of physics. Everything moves towards chaos. A system without additional energy added will always move towards chaos. Think about your bedroom. Think about the dining room table. Think about anything. You leave that shit alone for 30 seconds, she's already poking him like, yo, motherfucker. I'm gonna send him pictures because that's chaos. That is certainly my wife. She's literally laughing right now because I am an agent of chaos when it comes to that kind of thing. That is for sure. Anything left to its own devices is going to move towards chaos. All right. Staying with physics, how do we then create things that have order and structure? We pour energy into the system. And I'm not saying this in a woo way, and everyone in this room has permission. If you ever hear me use the word quantum mind, just fucking punch me in the mouth. If Einstein didn't understand quantum physics, I assure you, self-help movement does not understand quantum physics. So I want to keep this shit nice and real grounded. That drives me fucking nuts. The reason it drives me nuts is I think it throws people off the trail of what you really have to fucking do. All right, so the thing that really begins to fuck people up is that they have this idea, they want to accomplish something with their life, they're able to move over, start thinking about practice, it's all about pursuit, they're judging themselves based on that, are they sincerely going after it or not, and then they get into the middle of that shit. And it is so mind-numbingly boring. In fact, I think have some photos, Lise, if you haven't already shown them, that are the realities of what Quest was like to build it. Because what people see, they see the sexy side. They see us at the Inc. 500 Gala. They see Lisa wearing her Louboutins, showing off the red undersole. She was very proud of those. But they don't see this shit, which is where it started. When nobody knew who the fuck we were. This was before my man, Dave Barham, who's hiding in this audience somewhere. This was when nobody knew who we are. Nobody gave a shit. People were actually saying things like, I don't need protein bars, man. No thanks, I don't want any. We were giving them away for free. People wouldn't take them. We called one distributor up and he said, and I quote, I need another protein bar like I need another hole in the head. We went into a category that had 1,600 other bars and flavors and had been declining for years in sales. Nobody wanted the product that we were making. But we believed we had what Peter Thiel calls the 0 to 1. We had a secret that nobody else understood. It meant that we had to become our own manufacturers, which is how I went from making software all day to making protein bars all day. So this is me literally making protein bars. Like, this is the grind. This is the boredom. This is the sincere pursuit. This is the showing up every day. We had to assemble our own equipment, which I actually think we have a photo of as well. So this is us. This equipment showed up one day. A big like semi backs up, and we're all like, well, how the are we supposed to get it out? I'm not joking. And we're like, are we really that dumb? And so we're scrambling, and we're like, all right, the neighbor in the building, he's got a forklift, but nobody knows how to drive forklift. And I'm like, actually, I do. And my partner's like, what the And I'm like, as a kid, man, in my family, you had to work dead-end jobs. My dad had me in a paint factory. I worked in a paint warehouse. I worked in a paint factory and a paint store. I'm a fucking certified forklift driver. So we actually had video of me. I turned to the camera because we were filming it, and I was like, Dad, wax on, wax off. I was like, fuck, you want to talk about a skill I never thought I would need? There it was. So I literally drive a fucking forklift, put all this shit down, and now here we are not knowing, literally, there's a manual in here somewhere, and we are opening the manual, going through, trying to figure out how to put this shit back together. It was fucking bananas. But this is like this moment right here. One, what's on my face? I'm fucking smiling, man. I'm smiling because I believe in what I'm doing. I have a mission. I'm not just trying to get rich. There's something that I believe in. There's people that I love that were suffering that I wanted to do something about. I had them on my mind. And then truly advanced class shit, and hopefully we'll get into this more later. when shit really fucking goes wrong, man, this is promise to yourself number 2. Promise to yourself number 2. When shit really fucking goes wrong, that's the time to laugh. That's the time to be like, all right, if I go playful right now, it will change the dynamic of everyone in the fucking room. Whenever possible, to bounce in that opposite direction and change the dynamic of the way that you're thinking so that you don't get trapped in your own neurochemistry. Because when you have an emotion, the chances are you believe that emotion. But the brain has this crazy fucking weird mechanism where however big you react, it goes, oh, it was that big of a deal. So if you freak the fuck out and you're yelling and screaming, then your brain's like, yeah, man, it matters that fucking much. Like, I said no cheese on this fucking hamburger. There's fucking cheese on this burger. That shit is crazy. And when you wind yourself up like that, then literally it just gets hardwired that, yeah, this really is that catastrophic. But the reverse is true. Something horrifying happens. Something terrible goes wrong. And if you can, in your mind, just flip it and be like, yeah, we're going to figure this out. By the way, I am not, this is a shout out to the guy earlier who told me he burned the ships to be here. I'm not a burn the ships guy. I don't think you need to burn ships. I'm a nights and weekends guy. I think you need to work harder. That way, you don't have a gun to your head financially, because that puts you in a place to make short-term decisions instead of long-term decisions. You always want to be somewhere where you're making long-term decisions. I went to Lisa and I said, hey, we're going to have to put our house up as collateral for this company. And if we fail, then we lose everything. And she literally, without missing a beat, she says, I bet on you. That was one of those things where literally in the moment I was like, say it again. Which she has so many times. That woman, she is for real, ride or die. But in that moment where he was like, hey, I want to cut this shit apart and then put it back together, but if it doesn't work, then we're out the money. I'm thinking I'd be out of my house. And the one conversation that I don't want to have with my wife is, hey, you know, we had literally, I think, just gotten the house like 6 or 8 months before that. So I was like, I do not want to have that conversation. And so that's where the mentality of burning the ships becomes important. But tie it to something that is already real. It's already there. There's no way around it. You're not going out of your way to create more problems for yourself. So I was not going to lose that house. And so that became like the thing in my mind. All right, we're going to try this, but we are going to make it work. And so he literally got a Sawzall out and a blowtorch. He cut that shit apart. He put it back together and it actually fucking worked. And that was one of those moments where you're like, whoa, man, you really do have to have a certain appetite for risk. And so that's the third thing I'm going to say you guys need to do. You've got to give yourself permission to royally f*** up. Because if you're afraid to royally f*** up, if you're afraid to lose the house, it's okay to say, I'm not going to do it, man. I'm going to fight and push and I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. But if you're not willing to accept those kinds of consequences, you will have to play it smaller. So you've got to give yourself permission to royally f*** up. Now, why am I not afraid of royally fucking up? Because I know one thing. This is so important. Failure is the single most information-rich data stream that exists. You will never learn faster from anything than you'll learn from failure. One, pain triggers all kinds of things in your brain. The hippocampus becomes more active, your amygdala becomes more active, you write the memories harder, your brain focuses on it more. So there's just this intensity that happens when you fail. Also, failure is essentially the closest thing you're going to get to a sporting result. The nice thing about sports, and part of the reason they become like this gladiatorial thing that we obsess over and think about, is because you know who won and you know who lost. You know who's the best, you know who's the worst, you can see the stats, you watch it happen before your eyes. It's very hard in life. We don't often get that. Does my boss like me? Do they not like me? Am I going to get the promotion? Am I doing what I want? Should I even be in this job? Like, you have no idea. And then you make a decision and you don't know, like, would it have worked out better the other way? Who knows? You never get to try it. So when life slaps you in the mouth and you realize that you've really made a catastrophic error, then if you can approach it defenselessly, meaning you're not trying to protect your ego, because you wisely have already promised yourself that you're not going to tie your ego to the outcome. You're going to tie it to the sincere pursuit. So you need only ask yourself one question. In attempting that thing that I just failed catastrophically, was I sincerely pursuing the right outcome? And if the answer was yes, you get to feel good about yourself. And so you step into that moment saying, I tried and I failed. I know that failure is the most information data rich stream that there is. So what is the lesson here? And getting good at teasing that out and facing, even more than I'll say figuring it out, facing what you've done wrong, owning it, accepting it, allows you to not make that mistake the next time. And my encouragement to you guys is never judge yourself through the lens of a moment. You're going to mess up. You're going to mess up a lot. And if you loop negatively over that mistake, it just isn't effective. And I always tell people, do and believe that which moves you towards your goals. Like if you just repeat that one obsessively in your head, then one day you're going to get to a point where you do something and it really makes you dislike yourself. And you're going to have to ask, does disliking myself move me forward or not? If it moves me forward, then I'm going to do it. But chances are it's not going to. You may want to feel the sting of it. That may really propel you forward. But you don't want to exist in that state where you're just allowing yourself to beat yourself up, because no good ever comes of that. At that point, it is simply punishment. And so you have to ask yourself the value of that punishment, the value of the duration of the punishment. And so I began to be able to talk myself out of these self-limiting ideas, these beliefs about myself not being able to do it. And so building in these beliefs, rules in your life, become the foundation upon which you're going to build. And so this notion of building something brick by brick, of looking at your life on a long timeline, of not judging yourself in a moment, but rather, I like to look at myself in 10-year increments. If you ever want to feel good about yourself, look at your life in a 10-year increment. Because maybe over a month you didn't do anything very interesting, you can't really put your finger on what you've learned or who you've met, or have you really made any progress. Maybe you had a bad year, and so looking at that year, you're like, damn, man, I really moved backwards. And I asked this question one time of a guy that went through his residency. And I said, he was about to become a full-fledged medical doctor. And anybody in ITU, this literally just happened this last week. And I said, think back 10 years and what you knew about human biology at that point. Imagine you were going to step out and perform surgery on somebody, or be a GP and make recommendations for somebody with the knowledge that you had then. What would that feel like? He was like, that'd be terrifying. I'd be terrible. And I said, now imagine how much you've learned in that 10 years. And he was like, yeah, fuck, and he's smiling. And I said, now I want you to realize, if you play the game right, 10 years from now, you're going to think of who you are today the way that you thinks of you 10 years ago. And that's when this shit gets fun. Because when you realize, stumble here, there, failure, fall on your face, whatever, none of it's really going to matter if you're just relentlessly learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And if you're doing that, and if you're staying focused, then you're going to be able to begin to stack these bricks and build the thing that you want to build. But to build that thing, you're going to need clarity. The bad news is, if I were to sit with you and push you on it, the odds are that you still lack that clarity. Now, clarity is one of those things that I talk a lot about, but I just want to say, however clear you think you are, you're not clear enough yet. And the reason that I can say that just beyond a shadow of a doubt is, when you know something from like 10,000 angles, you just know it from every which way. You know exactly, like quadrants on a map. You know precisely latitude, longitude, all of it, down to like a grain of sand of where you're trying to head. When you have that, then you really can come at it from any angle. You can divert for a moment because you know where you're going back to. When you don't have that clarity, you're always lost. And that's where most entrepreneurs spend their time. Because remember, if I was the person I wanted to be, I would have walked out tonight and said, the only thing that stands between you and your dreams is a set of skills. And then drop the fucking mic. But I know that that doesn't break through. It doesn't get through to people the way that I want it to. If you can return to that over and over and over and over, every time something goes wrong in my life, I am asking myself one simple question. What is it that I suck at? I suck at something. There's something I'm doing wrong. By definition, if I were doing it right, then I would be getting the outcome that I wanted. I'm not getting the outcome that I want, therefore I'm doing something wrong. It is all my fault. I'm not trying to feel badly about myself because I am divorced from the outcome. I'm only valuing myself for being a learner, sincerely pursuing. That's it. So I'm not saying all that stuff to kick the shit out of myself, to feel badly about myself, to hold myself back. I'm saying it because the reality, working your ass off, getting good, but like really going in heads down, like just believe. This is my new obsession. We don't have big fangs. We don't have sharp claws. What we have is the ability to change. We're crazy adaptive. But when you put in the work, and the body is a really tangible example of just how much change the human body is capable of. And so when you see what you can do to your body, it is this insanely powerful reminder of just how much adaptation you're capable of. And that game of adaptation, like once you buy into, I am an average human. The average human is capable of extraordinary adaptation. Adaptation follows certain rules. All I have to do to become extraordinary and get where I want to go is follow the rules of adaptation. That's it. That is the name of this game. That is how you acquire skills. You do what is called deliberate practice